Good morning, everybody. My name is Sunandini. I'm part of the Acumen team, and I'm going to be talking about career framework today. So, how is it that I'm going to explain you this topic? This is the roadmap for it. I'm going to discuss career framework and career map because these two terminologies are used interchangeably when we are talking about careers in an organization. What is the importance from an organizational perspective and from an employee's perspective? Some key definitions I'm going to give for the terminologies I'm going to be using during the rest of the presentation, where I'm going to be covering the methodology that we follow generally when we do a career framework for an organization, as well as I'm going to take you through a live example, a company we had worked with to create a career framework for them, just to give you a snapshot of what we did, what kind of data we collated, what kind of data we prepared for them. All right? So what is career framework and career map? Now, career framework is a broader term. It's for an organization as a whole, as a picture to show them that what is the various career maps that is available for an individual in an organization. All right? So career map tells you the single path that you're going to take as you're moving up the hierarchy, and the career framework encompasses all these pathworks that you're going to be defining for the organization. All right? So in a map, you would have one path which is highlighted. For a career framework, you have different paths, different avenues of movement across hierarchical structure. As I was saying, map is for an individual. So what is my, as an individual in an organization, what is my aspirational role? That would tell me what path am I supposed to take in an organization. So any organization always has their aspirational roles put down for the employees, where an employee knows, okay, that is where I'm aiming for in this organization. And we pitch in to tell them these are the different pathways you can take for your aspirational role. So what does it require? It requires an honest look at what are the skills, the knowledge, the abilities that is required in each and every role which is there in an organization, as well as look at what is, as an employee, my skills and capabilities which is there in me right now for me to be able to devise a path to my aspirational role. So it is, as per I was saying earlier, it is a plan to obtain my aspirational role. Right? So what is the importance for it? So the organization, from an organization point of view, it represents the growth capabilities. I want to grow 10 times in the next 5 years. Then what kind of paths can I look at? What kind of paths can I offer to my employees to make sure that I'm able to have a good growth in my organization as a whole? Any organizational change because of any growth that I'm going for would also get supported through this career framework, because every individual who is in the organization is very clear about what is the path I'm going to take for my movement in the organization. Strengthens the link between the employer and the employee. If the organization is taking care of the employee has the confidence on his employer that you are going to give me all the opportunities which are possible in the organization for them to grow. It strengthens the link between the two. Attracts new talent. It can be used during recruitments, because you could always sell it as a USP for your organization, that I have a career framework for you in the organization which helps you to devise your own path that you want to take to the aspirational role. Employee perspective. I have a structured path which is given to me that I can follow in an organization, and I don't need to wonder after 2 years, what next? How do I reach that aspirational position which is so far away from me that I'm not able to visualize a path to it? Organic growth. Organization always pushes you towards an organic growth if there's a career framework. I grow not just in the hierarchy, I grow as an individual also, because my skills grow, my abilities grow, my competencies grow as I'm growing in an organization. It's a big morale booster for the employee that the company has taken the time to tell me these all things you need to do to grow in the organization. So it acts as a huge motivator for any employee when they have a structured career framework in an organization. So some of the key definitions that we're going to look at, because these are the terminologies I'm going to be using when I'm going to talk about the live example. I'll give you the connection when we get to the live example, but I'm just going to give you the definition here. So what are competencies? Any observable skills, abilities, knowledge, motivation, or other traits which is required to do a job successfully. All right? Scaled competencies. Scaled competencies is basically how the different levels of competencies get defined based on the proficiency that is required. For example, let me give you an example here. A sales manager and a sales officer, it's doing selling, right? But the techniques of selling will be very different. A person at a sales officer level may be at the lowest level of L1, level 1, but a sales manager is expected to exhibit much greater proficiency when it comes to the selling techniques. So he would be probably at an L3, level 3. Okay, so those are the kind of scaled competencies also we're going to look at when we talk about the live example. Competency architecture is basically preparing an entire database of all the competencies which are going to be required, which is there, that we're going to utilize when it comes to a particular function-wise segregation that we're going to do. Job groups or job families are basically certain roles which can be put together, clubbed together into a family or a group because they have similar functions or similar competencies or similar database of knowledge that is required for them to perform in their job. Okay? So what is the methodology that we're going to follow and that we follow in any organization? We first create a job family structure, which is basically we collate all the roles together and we start segregating them into families, job groups, which helps us when we later on depict the movement that is possible, because it is not physically or it is not theoretically possible to structure and have a path for every single role in an organization. We're talking about exponential pathways in an organization. So how do we simplify it and make it easy for any individual or any organization to understand what happens? Is through creating this job family and allowing the movements to be depicted across levels based on these job families. All right? Then we looked at every role in an organization, and we looked at what is the kind of experience you need to have, what are the kind of credentials you need to have, the education background that you need to come from, what are the kind of competencies you need to demonstrate, because every function would have different competencies and every level would have a different competency. Then we looked at the kind of learnings, that is kind of formal, informal education, informal training, any certifications you need, etc. We need to find out for every role. Then comes the exposures. Exposures is nothing but if I'm moving from one role to the other, what are the different kind of tasks, jobs, or different kind of roles I should have performed in the past for me to be able to understand the next level of my role. Okay, this will become a little clearer when I take you through the live example, because I'm using all these concepts there. Okay. Then is role progression. Role progression would be nothing but the cluster movement that's going to be there. The job family I have created, how does it move across levels? How will the role progress over the levels? Level 1 being my starting point and level 5 being my highest point. How do I move across levels? Okay. And then I do a gap analysis to see this is where I stand today, this is where I need to be tomorrow. So what is the gap in competencies? What is the gap in knowledge, abilities that I need to bridge to be able to successfully perform my job in the next level? Yeah? Okay, so now I'll take you through the live example. It's a company which is in the engineering industry and has plans to grow 10 times in the next 5 years. So you can imagine the kind of growth they were looking at. And they needed this kind of a structure to be able to show the employees that this is the kind of path you need to take, as well as also know what are the skills which are required for every role, which would help them prepare a person for succession into that role in the future as they are growing in the organization. They had 6 product lines which were divided into 6 business verticals. Okay? Sales office and plants across India and abroad. So the entire movement was not just in India but also abroad. They had to map the positions which are available abroad in this particular career framework. Though I have taken this example, this is not a norm. Norm for any organization is that there are specific job families in which you can have movement. So somebody from a sales would fit into, say, marketing, right? But somebody from operations would not go into marketing, because that's not the kind of logical movement that's there in any organization. But this example that I have taken specifically because it's an exception. The organization believed in an open environment. So there were flexible movements which were possible. So anybody from operations could move into sales. So the challenge became for us when we were designing this career framework was keep that flexible movement options in mind when we are preparing this career framework. So the kind of learnings, the kind of exposures that a person from operations needs to move into sales had to be visualized and tabulated for them, which is not the norm in the industry. So basically I'm dividing this entire section, live example, into 3 phases. We had done this for the organization in 3 phases. All right? So phase 1 was just meeting up people, understanding the structure, understanding the processes, meeting up with the HR, meeting up with the fast track employees to understand why are they on the fast track. What is it that they're doing which is so unique which puts them on a fast track. And an organization which have flexible movement options, being on a fast track, moving across levels, across functions, there has to be something that is unique that they are doing. Okay. Phase 2 was creating an experience in education map database for them. So we spoke to a lot of people, the HODs, etc., to understand what kind of educational background are the people coming from. If you hire somebody, what background do you actually hire them from? So across functions, some were similar, some were not so similar. Then we also looked at what kind of experience, number of years of experience they should have before they enter into that particular role. Because in the current scenario, we look at number of years of experience as qualitative experience and rather than quantitative experience. So you may have spent 12 years in a particular role. You're considered to be experienced, even if in that 12 years you've not done anything. We count it according to numbers. So we had to then sit and understand from them, when you talk about years of experience, how do you define those years of experience? We made an exhaustive list of roles which is there in the organization to understand what is going to be the feeder roles and potential roles. Potential roles are nothing but my aspirational roles. What is it that I am aiming for? Okay? And feeder roles were roles from which I can have a path to my aspirational role. Okay? So scaled competencies we prepared function-wise. Again, this is creating a database of everything. So for sales, what are the competencies? What are the levels which are going to be there? For R&D, what are the functions? What are the levels which are going to be there? Etc. We created as a database for them. We also introduced a new concept called practice behaviors, which is nothing but any person who gets hired in a particular function, there are some inherent qualities they should have to be able to succeed in that function. We identified those practice behaviors for the organization function-wise, which later on would act as a recruitment tool for them. Because these are the inherent qualities that you would expect. For example, if a salesperson is there, all right, you're hiring for a sales profile, you would always look for somebody who's aggressive, who's extrovert, who's resilient, because that's an inherent quality of a salesperson. The job families got created for the organization based on all the roles that we had collated. So we put all the roles which had similar functions, similar competencies together to create the job family. The next thing we had to do was have a path for those roles. So where is it that one job family, what are the options which are available for that particular job family? All right, this will become a little more clearer once I give you the sample that I have, wherein I will be able to show you the job family that we have clubbed together and created, plus the movements which are possible. Now, based on the cluster movement, then we took each and every role, defined based on their competencies, what is going to be the level in which they are going to fall. So for example, a sales manager would fall under which all competency level? All right. So we did it for managerial competencies. Managerial competencies for this company were decided at the global level. So all we did was segregate them into level wise and put them under each and every role. So if there is a job family which is at first level, starting point, the feeder role, at what proficiency level do they need to be for that particular competency? And as they move the hierarchy, how does the proficiency level increase? Functional competencies got identified. For each function we had created the database. Now it got segregated role-wise. Practice behaviors, education map, from what kind of educational background should that person be? What kind of experience should he have? What are the learnings? What are the exposures he needs to have? Okay, so what I'll do is now I'll take you through a snapshot of the data that we had collated for the organization, and I will show you the databases that we had created, plus I will also show you how the cluster movement happens and what is the role-wise criteria we had put down. This is the experience in education map. So this is the background that they would come from. They could be a PhD, postgraduate, engineer. These are the levels which are there in the organization, and these are the kind of experience. So an engineer, a postgraduate engineer would join only at the M12 level and would come with a 0 to 5 years of experience. That's for the technical, then you also had for the non-technical and the services. So what are the kind of professional qualifications you need to have? What kind of experience do you need to have in that particular level got defined? Okay, so like I was telling you, managerial competencies, these are 11 competencies that were defined at the global level for this organization. So all we looked at was the level wise, what are the kind of behaviors they need to exhibit, and these got segregated as critical and important. So the ones which were marked in red were the critical ones. They need to do it for that, they need to exhibit for that particular role. And the black ones were the ones which are important but not critical. So you could be exhibiting them, but they may not be the obvious exhibitors. But this would be the obvious exhibition of that competency. This is a snapshot of R&D, research and development function, and these are their competencies, functional competencies, which were identified based on the discussions that we had with the HOD, with the various key members in the team, and the fast track employees. So again, we had created this level wise. At L1, what are the kind of the particular competency, what are the behaviors you need to exhibit, and so on. L1 being the lowest and L4 being the highest. Then again for R&D itself, these are the practice behaviors that we had looked at. So an R&D person needs to have an intellectual curiosity to understand why is it happening, what is happening, why is it happening, how is it happening. So those are the inherent quality of an R&D employee. That's what we were trying to achieve through this. Okay. Since we continued with R&D in the functional and the managerial as well as in the practice behavior, I am taking R&D as a job family. So R&D has a direct progression, hierarchical movement into these gray fields. Direct, all right, because that's the same job family. It's the same kind of competency, the same kind of knowledge, skill that you need to have. But when it comes to this particular set of roles, it becomes that you need to have some inputs which have to be given to you by the organization for you to be able to successfully perform in this role. So then we have a 0 to 3 months learning plan which gets formulated, and this differs for every individual because it depends on where you stand and what is the gap which is there. All right. Then there is another set of roles wherein you require 3 to 6 months of learning plan. Then across levels, it's the same. Again, 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and you keep on moving. Can you open this cluster 3, please? Okay. This is the second job family that we had identified. Again, same thing. This is a direct progression, the same job family. This is with 0 to 3 months of learning plan, and this is with 3 to 6 months of learning plan. Okay. For every R&D role, we have defined each and every competency, each and every practice behavior, the kind of experience, the kind of education, etc. that's required. So an engineer R&D would have these all managerial competencies, and these are the levels which I'm picking up from the database that I had created. All right? Practice behavior, the education experience map. Then there are learnings. What is the essential training programs, certifications, etc. you need to go through. So for a person who joins as an engineer R&D, they have a set graduate engineering training which happens for 100 days. It is mandatory for everybody to go through it. So that becomes their learning plan. That becomes their learning. The kind of exposures they need to have. So somebody who's at level 2 engineer needs to only know how to design the experiments. But a level 3 has to be an expert in designing those experiments. So he needs to have hands-on experience of designing those experiments. This is a sample role sheet I have created for a manager R&D. So this is how an individual look at his role sheet. If I am going to be moving from an engineer R&D to head R&D, so what are the different roles I need to go through? What are the different managerial skill levels, functional skill levels, the exposures I need, etc. would be given to him as a handout. So you are here, you are moving here, so next role sheet. Next role sheet. So this helps any individual to plan his own career in the organization. Thank you. Questions? Yes, please. No, it's not required for them. If somebody is joining at L1, then he gets for the next level. He needs to know how to prepare for the next level. Because as the organization grows, an L3 and an L4 could change. The kind of expertise you need, the kind of trainings you need may change. So he'll be always given one level up to look at.
Another thing is during this practice
behaviors.
Yeah, you had something for vision strategy for L1 R&D engineers also. In that Excel sheet you have.
Can you just go up? No, just go up. Huh. Practice behaviors or the role-wise criteria?
Just show me the practice behaviors. No, not this, previous one.
Is this the one you're talking about?
Yeah, just go ahead. What I wanted to ask is you have stated that strategy, vision strategy for L1 also. Do you expect that they should be told about they should be aware of the vision of the company? But I would be more interested whether they are following the mission, how to achieve that particular vision would be more important than
Okay, so this is basically the managerial competencies which were defined at the global level. All right, and they have levels which we had put down, and we said that somebody who's in an engineer R&D role needs to at least know what the vision and strategy is. So yes, at the L1 level. As you move up the level, it increases. So somebody like an head R&D has to be able to actually put inputs in the vision, has to be able to even design a vision for the organization as far as his own function is concerned. So the levels got defined in the database that we had of managerial competencies. He needs to actually have it at the back of his mind when he's making any decision that this is the strategy of the organization. So what am I looking at? Can I do this? Can I take any action regarding this particular area when my vision of the organization is this? So he needs to know at the back of his mind.
during a live project, did you help them with the mission statement, how exactly to achieve?
That was decided at the global level, like I was saying. Our role was in understanding the different roles and understanding what kind of movements are possible in the organization. Questions? Anybody else?
This document obviously cannot be static, right? It needs to be upgraded. So normally what would be the frequency of upgrading? And when you're upgrading it, would it involve the same amount of hard work that went to creating this document?
I would say if you're doing year on year, because the learnings and the exposures will keep on changing, so their inputs year on year need to be updated. But when it comes to, say, the managerial competencies, which is decided at the global level, it would probably happen once in 3 years or 4 years. So that's when your updation would happen. Functional competencies, again, would be once in 2 years, because newer things keep on happening in the organization. You're planning to grow 10 times in the next 5 years. There are bound to be some changes which will keep on happening within the roles itself.
I'm not talking about the roles, I'm talking about the environment. Because just take the class before this, if you're on a media. 5 years ago, no one would have been able to predict. Now you're here. So obviously what was decided 5 years ago becomes irrelevant.
True.
So that needs to be taken care of. So how do you factor that? You go with one, you go with one institution, then your framework will be irrelevant.
Yes, please.
So typically, you're supposed to review these documents, any documents in HR, whether it's your job descriptions, whether it's your performance management system, whatever it may be. Second year, you're expected to relook and review whether it's relevant in the current scenarios. So that has to happen. The amount of work that was done in terms of doing this is not required, because you have to only do a reality check whether it's still valid or not, and you have to make subtle changes based on the changes in the environment or changes within the organization. Unless and until there is a significant change and you want to wrap up this business and start some other business
Or acquire
Or
another.
at the global
another
level.
business.
Or at the global level, your vision has changed. Your managerial competencies would automatically get updated. Okay. No questions? Thank you so much. Thank you.